De Qin. The seven-star lamp continues life, letting ancestral dragons live forever. Introduction. In the 36th year of the first emperor, the eternal Emperor Ying Zheng was on the brink of death, his life hanging on the line, and the imperial mansion was leaning. Su Wangchuan, the Marquis of Wuwei in the Great Qin Dynasty, did not want the eternal emperor to die in front of him like this. He decided to change his fate against the heavens. Immediately offer a continuation technique, the seven-star lamp continuation technique. This method can seize the creation of heavenly secrets and reverse the variables of yin and yang. 10 years later, Ying Zheng hugged Su Wangchuan's shoulder and looked at the black golden dragon flags planted all over the sand table. Forgotten river, as you said, all the mountains and rivers illuminated by the sun and moon are my great Qin rivers and mountains. Chapter 1. I have one law that can increase Your Majesty's lifespan by one chapter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The 36th year of emperorship. Qin King Ying Zheng, sweeping across the six harmonies and unifying the central plains. Self-proclaimed as the third emperor of virtue and high school, meritorious to the five emperors, self-proclaimed as the first emperor. However, in June of the same year, a meteorite fell from Dongjun. The inscription reads: The first emperor died and was divided on the ground. Since then, Ying Zheng's body has been deteriorating day by day. Even after searching for famous doctors all over the world, they are still powerless to return to heaven. Xianyang. Qin Palace. Ying Zheng was half lying on the dragon couch, his face pale and bloodless, looking very weak. In his eyes, the aura that should have looked down upon the world had vanished. Now there is only endless unwillingness left. The next moment, Ying Zheng smiled wryly and said, Throughout my life, I have worked tirelessly for 6 generations to open up the world. Why would the heavens want to destroy my great Qin and take my life? Although I am the first emperor, I still cannot defy the will of heaven. If he were to die today, he had no choice but to let it go. It's simply sad, it's lamentable. So, Ying Zheng was unwilling to die like this. He may not seek immortality, but only to be able to complete the unfinished tasks in his heart one by one. I have no regrets in this life. Your Majesty, why be so melancholy? However, at this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side. I saw a man standing not far from the dragon couch. The man is over 8 feet tall, with sword eyebrows and starry eyes. He is dressed in a green lotus-white robe, exuding a resolute yet warm temperament from top to bottom. His name is Su Wangchuan, and he is the current Marquis of Wuwei in the Great Qin Dynasty. Marquis belongs to the highest level of the Qin 20th class nobility system. Gold-printed purple ribbon, with fiefs, earns food and rent taxes. 20 years ago, Su Wangchuan was hit by a stream of light and traveled through this world. In his past life, he was just a small Taoist wandering in the martial arts world. To be precise, even a Taoist cannot be called. Because he has not truly taught any teachings. Only after receiving talismans can Taoists become known as the Heavenly Chao and hold the position of a Taoist priest. At that time, Su Wangchuan relied on divination and fortune-telling for others to make a living. In short, neither rich nor hungry can lead to death. Of course, the accuracy of this calculation is uncertain, so let's talk about it separately. After he arrived in this world, with the knowledge of later generations and the necessary golden finger system for travelers, he successfully climbed to his current position and became the most trusted person by Ying Zheng in one fell swoop. I can also be considered one of the many interlopers, doing quite well. It should be noted that the military merit title system of the 20th level in the state of Qin is a system that rewards military merit and encourages the pursuit of victory by killing enemies. In short, by capturing one head of the enemy, armored warrior, usually an elite vanguard in the army, one can obtain a first-level title, Gongshi, Tianiqing, Zaichu, and a servant. The more heads you kill enemies, the higher your title will be. Back then, when Qin swept the 6 kingdoms, Su Wangchuan alone destroyed the 5 kingdoms, and he even killed countless experts from the 6 kingdoms. After sweeping the 6 harmonies and unifying the world in the state of Qin, Emperor Qin Shi Ying Zheng personally conferred the title of Marquis of Wuwei of the Great Qin on Su Wangchuan, and even gave him 300,000 troops of military power. Forgetting the river, although the Great Qin Dynasty swept through the 6 harmonies and unified the world, achieving an unprecedented feat. But you should be very clear about the situation in Daqin. Ying Zheng looked at Su Wangchuan, his eyes flickering with strange fluctuations. Qin swept across the 6 harmonies and unified the world. But at the same time, it also left countless future troubles for the empire. 100 schools of thought, the remaining sins of the 6 kingdoms. Strange tribes on the border, wolf riders outside the Great Wall. Everyone is eyeing the empire one by one. For them, the empire is a complete feud. Even at all costs, we will destroy this vast empire. During the reign of Ying Zheng, the imperial power intimidated the 4 poles. Those young people can only hide in the dark, like mice in the sewer, constantly nibbling on the imperial dam bit by bit. Once Ying Zheng falls, how can there be a complete egg after invading the nest? They will definitely sweep in like a tide. At that time, it will be an unprecedented war. How long can the Qin, without Ying Zheng, persist under this impact force? It can be said that all the hope of Daqin lies solely on him. The Great Wall needs to be repaired, the remaining evils must be leveled, and the Xianyang wolf tribe in the northern region must be destroyed even more. He is too short of time. Only immortality can break the game. As long as he wins the bid for longevity, I will surely lead the Great Qin to sweep the world and live forever. He, the first Emperor Ying Zheng. When one person is present, the Great Qin will stand firm and never fall. However, in recent years, there has been no news of the elixir of life. He poured countless resources into the Xianyang family. Even willing to agree to the Xianyang family building a mirage at any cost. But what about it? So far, he hasn't even seen a fart. Ultimately, it's fate that cannot be violated. Ying Zheng lowered his head and sighed, looking tired. The world is suffering, and I, a person from the Great Qin, am even more suffering. Whether it's soldiers or civilians. I don't have a chance to create better living conditions for them anymore. The next moment, Ying Zheng suddenly raised his eyes and looked towards Su Wangchuan. Forgotten River, how long have you and I known each other? 20 years, not much, not much. Su Wangchuan responded. It's been 20 years. Ying Zheng's eyes flashed with a hint of nostalgia. As if recalling the first time we met Su Wangchuan. After a moment, Ying Zheng's expression changed and he said, "Forget the river, I have something to ask of you." Feeling Ying Zheng's seductive gaze, Su Wangchuan hesitated slightly and immediately said, "Your Majesty, please speak. If one day I am gone, Forgotten River, may you promise me to protect the Great Qin for another 10 years. I know, you have that strength. Plus the 300,000 strong army in the north. With you around, I'm not worried that anyone will rebel." Upon hearing these words, Su Wangchuan felt a mix of flavors in his heart. Is this an account of the relationship after the incident? Seeing Su Wangchuan hesitating, Ying Zheng said again, "Wangchuan, I don't want you to guard Daqin for the rest of your life. I only hope you can protect me for 10 years. 10 years later, whether the Great Qin was born or died was entirely determined by fate. You know, it's not that I don't want to establish a crown prince, but I don't want Daqin to be destroyed like this." Speaking of which, Ying Zheng showed a hint of melancholy and sadness. Li Chu has always been a headache for him. The eldest son, Fu Su, should be the most suitable candidate for the position of heir apparent at the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Due to his personality, he is indecisive and kind. I am determined to govern the world with kindness, propriety, and music. How could Ying Zheng accept it? All the rivers and mountains that Qin now possesses were personally conquered by him. Besides, if he accepts it, will those brave old Qin people who died in battle spare him? Even Ying Zheng himself won't let himself go. A weak and cowardly personality will ultimately make it difficult to achieve great things. As for my youngest son, young in age and lacking in intelligence, I only know how to eat, drink, and have fun all day long. He is unable to handle the position of crown prince. Your Majesty. Su Wangchuan opened his mouth and hesitated to speak. Indeed, with him present, the Qin could not resist. Ying Zheng was not mistaken about this. After all, in these years, he has accumulated a lot of power in the dark through the system. It can even be said to be spread all over the world. But this is never a long-term solution. He can ensure that the Great Qin Dynasty will be worry-free for 10 years. But what about 10 years from now? Is the Qin still repeating the same mistakes and stepping into the footsteps of its original history? That's what Su Wangchuan doesn't want to see. What he wants to see: the Great Qin Empire stands tall in the world. The black golden dragon flag of Qin should be planted in the capital of the Roman Empire. All the spring breeze 90.9 thousand. The 4 seas and 8 wastelands are all part of our territory in the Great Qin Dynasty. He wants all the mountains and rivers illuminated by the sun and moon to be the Great Qin River and mountains. Your Majesty, although I do not have the art of cultivating immortality and longevity, I have a method that I may try. As long as you succeed, you can prolong Your Majesty's life by 1 year, 12 years. Chapter 2. 7-Star Lamp continues life. Su Wangchuan, with high expectations. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. I have a method that can increase Your Majesty's lifespan by 1 record. Su Wangchuan's words have just finished. Half lying on the dragon couch, Ying Zheng suddenly sat up straight, staring intently at Su Wangchuan. The pupils kept swaying slightly. This is an excited performance. Forget river, are you serious about this? He met Su Wangchuan for 20 years. In these 20 years, Su Wangchuan has never told him a lie. This is also why he trusts Su Wangchuan so much. The relationship between the two appears to be that of a ruler and a subject, but in reality, they are good friends. He knew that Su Wangchuan would definitely not deceive himself. But in excitement, I couldn't help but ask. For Ying Zheng, nothing can match the weight of this sentence now. Being true is true. Su Wangchuan nodded. But then, with a hesitant expression, he said, it's just. Just what? Ying Zheng urgently asked. Just Your Majesty. I cannot guarantee success. Su Wangchuan said. Upon hearing this, Ying Zheng couldn't help but show a bitter smile and said, forget Sichuan, now that I am like this, is there anything else I dare not try? Yes, even if it doesn't succeed, what then? The big deal is failure. But who is Ying Zheng? The first emperor in history to unify the world. His surname is Ying, and he has won it all his life. He believes that this time is no exception. I will also win. Upon seeing this, Su Wangchuan spoke slowly and said, Your Majesty, this method is called the 7-Star Lamp Continuation Method. The 7-Star Lamp, also known as the Continuation Lamp or Summoning Lamp, is an ancient Taoist magic in ancient China. Its history can be traced back to the Shang and Zhou dynasties, and it has been passed down for thousands of years. At first, Su Wangchuan did not believe that lighting a few lamps would allow him to borrow from the sky for another 12 years. But later on, in his past life, Su Wangchuan flipped through countless books and consulted countless sources. Finally, it has been verified that in history, there were 2 people who used the 7-Star Lamp to prolong their lives. One person is Zhuge Liang from the Three Kingdoms period, and the other is Liu Bowen, a founding hero of the Ming dynasty. But Zhuge Liang did not succeed in renewing his life, which means that in history, only Liu Bowen succeeded in renewing his life. Since someone has succeeded, it indicates that this method is feasible. So Su Wangchuan decided to let Ying Zheng try this legendary method of prolonging his life. Forgotten River, what should I do then? Ying Zheng asked eagerly. Your Majesty, this matter was not achieved in a single day. Haste makes waste, and rushing too quickly can actually lead to twice the result with half the effort. Moreover, a country cannot be without a ruler for a day. Su Wangchuan said calmly. The 7-star lamp continuation refers to lighting 7-star lamps. Arrange according to the orientation of the Big Dipper. 49 small lamps are placed outside, and 1 Benming lamp is installed inside. Then, they pray to the Beidou. The technique of appealing to the heavens, expressing one's own wishes, and seeking heavenly mercy to continue one's life. If the lamp of one's destiny does not go out within 7 days, it represents the mercy of the heavens and their agreement. You can increase your lifespan by 1 year, which is 12 years. If the life light goes out within 7 days, it means that fate cannot be violated, and the lamp owner will undoubtedly die. So, Su Wangchuan must make sufficient preparations in advance. Ensure true foolproof. Prevent the tragedy of Zhuge Liang from happening again in history. Upon hearing this, Ying Zheng hurriedly said, I'm actually anxious. He, Ying Zheng, was the emperor of Great Qin. If 1 day is away, the Qin will become chaotic. Moreover, it will take 7 days. Whenever news leaks out. Don't mention Xianyang, I'm afraid there will be a storm outside. And the princes in the palace need not say much. I will definitely jump out in a hurry. At that time, it will be difficult to recover the losses. Of course, this cannot be entirely blamed on him. Replace it with anyone else. I'm afraid they are even more anxious than him. After all, this is a matter of personal life and death. There are only 1 or 2 people in the court who have the ability to supervise the country for themselves. But Ying Zheng actually doesn't want to consider them. Just like Li Si, although he has the ability, he is not obedient to others. If he were to supervise the country, there might not be major problems, but minor issues would definitely not break. As for my own princes. Okay, let's just forget it. In one sentence, it's not as good as Li's. After a moment of contemplation, Ying Zheng seems to have made some kind of decision. He looked at Su Wangchuan, the corner of his mouth slowly rising. Forgotten River, I have one more thing to trouble you with. Your Majesty, please speak, Su Wangchuan gestured. Tomorrow morning in the morning, I will issue an order to announce that you will supervise the country on my behalf until I come out. At that time, the internal and external affairs of the Qin will be handed over to you. Upon hearing these words, Su Wangchuan couldn't help but be taken aback. Immediately, a bitter smile appeared on his face. He didn't expect His Majesty to have him come to supervise the country. If this news spreads, it may cause significant fluctuations. The next moment, Ying Zheng took out a tiger talisman from his arms. This tiger talisman can mobilize 100,000 guards from Xianyang. I have temporarily handed it over to you as well. Su Wangchuan stepped forward and reached out to take it. Nowadays, he holds 2 tiger talismans in his hand. One can mobilize 100,000 Imperial guards in Xianyang City, while the other can mobilize 300,000 black armored army in the north. Ying Zheng's move has always been a taboo among military strategists. Military power cannot be fully controlled by anyone except the emperor. To put it bluntly, as long as Su Wangchuan wants to rebel now, he can immediately rebel. And the royal family will have no defense against it. After all, Su Wangchuan now holds a full 400,000 troops in his hands. Nearly 2/3 of the entire Qin Empire's living power is now available. Your Majesty, are you not afraid? Su Wangchuan asked the doubts in his heart. Ying Zheng glanced and said, I have never misjudged anyone in my life. Moreover, even without these 100,000 Imperial guards, if you want to rebel, can I still stop you like this? Su Wangchuan nodded heavily and said, I will not disappoint your Majesty's trust. Ying Zheng is right. If Su Wangchuan wants to rebel, even if he doesn't hold the military power of the 300,000-strong army in the north, it can also be reversed. Because in these 20 years, Su Wangchuan has accumulated many forces that belong only to himself through the system. His system is a divine-level check.in system. Due to the particularity of the system, Zhao's sign in only once every 4 years. But the check.in rewards will become increasingly generous over time. For the first time signing in, Su Wangchuan obtained a subordinate of the Grand Master's realm. Quan Qing Tian Xia Li Chenzhou. With the help of Li Chenzhou, Su Wangchuan quickly established a foothold in this world. Sign in for the second time and obtain the Yanyan 18 cavalry and a peerless divine weapon, Xianyang sword. On the third time of signing in, Su Wangchuan received the lifelong inheritance of the sword god Li Chungang. That is to say, after this, Su Wangchuan held the Xianyang divine sword and transformed into a human butcher. With the power of the sword god, he alone destroyed the 5 kingdoms and helped Ying Zheng unify the world. Finally, he was conferred the title of Marquis of Wuwei by Ying Zheng. Sign in for the 4th time and obtain the assassin organization, Qingyi building. And now the Qingyi tower has been planted by Su Wangchuan in various parts of the world. Its influence spreads throughout the world. The well-known net is in front of the Qingyi tower. That's just a little brother. And the 5th time of check.in. This is the most recent time. The reward is a book. It is called the Complete Collection of Taoist Methods. It clearly records all the Taoist and magical practices from ancient times to the present. And the 7-star lamp life continuation method. Su Wangchuan was also reminded of it after reading this Complete Collection of Taoist Methods. Apart from the 7-star lamp life continuation method, there is also another type of life continuation technique recorded in the Complete Collection of Taoist Methods. It's called seed growth base. It's just that this kind of life renewal technique is too demonic. Therefore, Su Wangchuan decided to let Ying Zheng try the 7-star lamp life continuation technique first. If the 7-star lamp fails to renew its life, then we can only try to extend our lifespan by planting new seeds. Chapter 3. Marquis Wuwei oversees the country. If anyone does not comply, they will be beheaded. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The next day. Early morning. Inside the Qilin Hall, all civil and military officials are present. But everyone had different expressions on their faces. Obviously, each person is speculating on their own thoughts. Since Ying Zheng's critical illness, they haven't gone to such an early morning court for a long time. More of the rest. Li Si is responsible for transmitting the imperial edict of the first emperor. Today, the atmosphere inside the entire hall seems somewhat unusual. It's as if the once majestic and emperor-like Qin Shi Huang has returned. Ying Zheng sat at the top, his dragon eyes scanning over the courtiers one by one. Everyone only felt a strong sense of oppression coming. Continuing. I saw Ying Zheng calmly speaking, recently, the dragon has been feeling unwell and tired, so I plan to rest for a while. During my absence, the government will be entrusted to Marquis Wuwei for management. Schwa. Ying Zheng's words have just finished. The whole morning suddenly exploded into a pot. Everyone's faces changed instantly. No way. No way, Your Majesty. At the same time, countless voices of opposition rang out. Your Majesty, absolutely not. Your Majesty, Marquis Wuwei has already assumed the position of Marquis of Daqin. If he continues to oversee the country, it may be unreasonable. Your Majesty, since ancient times, those who have been in charge of the country have only been relatives of the royal family. Marquis Wuwei is not a member of the royal family, and his etiquette and music are completely inappropriate. Your Majesty, regarding the matter of supervising the country, the eldest son Fusu has already reached adulthood and can serve as the supervisor for Your Majesty. Everyone's faces were extremely ugly. At this moment, the originally solemn and dignified court seemed to have turned into a vegetable market. They looked at Su Wangchuan standing silently on the side. A hint of deep fear flashed in my eyes. The fierce power of Marquis Wuwei has not been forgotten by them. Back then, with one's own strength, he forcefully conquered the 5 kingdoms and laid a solid foundation for the Great Qin. No one dares to question his strength. But now, even if everyone risks offending this Marquis of Wuwei, today, we must also make Ying Zheng take back his life. Because once Su Wangchuan was in charge of the country. Isn't this a replay of history? The former LV Wuwei was an official in charge of overseeing the country, giving him immense power, but in the end, he was influenced by power and caused the entire empire to become chaotic. They are afraid that Su Wangchuan will become the second LV Wuwei. After all, power and people are these things. They dare not suspect. I can't even guess. Faced with the opposition of these people, Su Wangchuan just stood quietly in place. This was decided by Ying Zheng. He said it doesn't count. And he also knows what these people are thinking. I hold 300,000 military power. If we add the power of supervising the country, it can be said that he is in existence below 1 person and above 10,000 people. Of course, the premise is that he will still take this 1 person seriously. Otherwise, it's his the final say. However, upon hearing these opposing voices, Ying Zheng, his eyes narrowed slightly and he swept towards the courtiers again. Why, my Daqin, when will you decide? Schwa. Once this statement is made, all the voices in the court suddenly came to a halt. I dare not. Li Si was the first to step out. Bowing and bowing, he bowed to Ying Zheng. The others then followed suit one after another. And Zhao Gao's face in the crowd was extremely strange. He didn't expect that many princes were present. But Your Majesty still has someone who is not a member of the royal family come to oversee the country. My decision has been made. If anyone dares to oppose, slash directly. With a wave of his sleeve, Ying Zheng exuded an unparalleled aura. Chang. Standing beside Ying Zheng, Zhang Han suddenly drew his sword and stared sharply at the field. As long as someone dares to oppose at this moment, the sword in his hand will not hesitate to cut towards the opponent's neck. No matter who it is. He is the commander of the Shadow Guard. For him, Ying Zheng's words are divine orders. Sen Han's killing intent frightened the officials into silence, and they all remained silent. They wouldn't think that Zhang Han wouldn't dare to kill himself. No one dares to show off this authority. Finally, under the unwilling gaze of everyone, Su Wangchuan arched his hand and bowed calmly, saying, "My lord, lead the decree." Zhao Gao hid in the crowd and gave Su Wangchuan a sideways glance. Although he really wants to prevent his supervision of the country, it is obviously not cost effective if he loses his life for it. Immediately, we can only make alternative plans after going down. But for him, the good thing is, at least Your Majesty did not entrust the task of supervising the country to the eldest son Fusu. Otherwise, he will stand up and oppose everything he says. At this point, the court meeting has come to an end. The courtiers dispersed one after another. Su Wangchuan also went down to prepare. After going down, the news of Marquis Wuwei acting as the regent for the country suddenly spread. For a moment, the entire Xianyang was stirred up by a storm. Even some people began to panic in secret, afraid that Su Wangchuan would be like LV Buwei in the past. After gaining power, they began to suppress them. Meanwhile, forces from other regions have also received this news. Although they may not be as fearful as the officials of Xianyang, they are inevitably filled with suspicion. After all, the sudden appointment of the Qing king to oversee the country, and being a Marquis of Wuwei, is enough to indicate that something big has happened within the empire. As for what big deal? I'm afraid only by exploring can we find out. And the remnants of the 6 kingdoms hiding in the shadows. Naturally, you won't miss this excellent opportunity. Mahist Institution City. The inner city lobby. Several figures gathered here. In my opinion, it must be because the tyrant was seriously ill that Marquis Wuwei was appointed to supervise the country on his behalf. The sledgehammer spoke first, expressing his own speculation. Standing on the side, Gao Jianli nodded slowly and said, "What Brother Hammer said is not impossible. If that's really the case, we can make good use of this opportunity," said Thief Ji, holding her hands and leaning aside. The Mahist giant, wearing a bamboo hat and a black robe, stood aside without speaking. He doesn't think things are that simple. Because all the imperial princes are present, why should a marquis come to supervise the country? What kind of mystery must be hidden within this? But he ultimately decided. Wait for it to change. After all, the news has already spread. Zhaozhuyuan.com. It must have spread to the ears of various factions. There are too many forces in the world trying to overthrow this empire building. Not only their Mahist school. So, there will definitely be someone who can't bear it first. It will be their opportunity then. Taoism. Wudao Cliff. Wearing a Taoist robe and with long white hair, Xiaozi stands on the top of the cliff. As graceful as clouds, with a fairy-like demeanor. Behind him. It is a Taoist disciple reporting the news. Marquis Wuwei oversees the country. After hearing the report from his disciple, Xiaozi's expression suddenly froze. This is big news. When did the news come? He asked. Master Hui, just now, the disciple replied. All right, step back. Xiaozi waved his sleeve. Yes, master. After speaking, the disciple left. After the disciple's leave, Xiaozi carried her hands on her back, her eyebrows slightly furrowed. A trace of nostalgia surged into my heart in an instant. In his pupils, a figure appeared. The figure holds a sword with one hand, even in the face of thousands of troops and horses, without fear. And this figure is now the Marquis of Wuwei in the empire. He once saw that man with his own eyes on the battlefield. Like a killing god, with just one sword, one person slaughtered nearly tens of thousands of people. Such deterrence will be unforgettable to him forever. Now, the king of Qin has appointed that man to oversee the country. Can you say that your past prophecy is it coming true? Chapter 4. Fist leads the world to Chenzhou, Moon God defeats. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xianyang family. Luo Xingtang. After receiving the news of Marquis Wuwei's supervision of the country, the Moon God immediately rushed back to the Xianyang family from the National Teacher's Mansion and told the news to the Eastern Emperor Tai. Your Excellency, what should we do now? Marquis Wuwei oversees the country, which completely disrupts their next plans. Moreover, this Marquis of Wuwei oversees the country, and no one knows what will happen. After all, the reputation of being slaughtered by Marquis Wuwei is not for nothing. Even the Moon God has a faint illusion. If nothing unexpected happens, something big will happen during this period of time. At this moment, standing above, the Eastern Emperor, shrouded in a black robe, spoke up. You go to the palace yourself. Inquire about what exactly Ying Zheng's purpose is. Relying solely on poor health to let others monitor the country. This is clearly not a reasonable reason. What must be the secret behind it? Upon hearing this, the moon god quickly responded, "Yes, Your Excellency the Eastern Emperor." When she first received this news, I am also very puzzled. I have been a national teacher in Daqin for so long. Ying Zheng's personality has long been well known. Even if there is only one last breath left, I won't easily let others supervise the country. Next up, the moon god retreated. After the moon god left, the Eastern Emperor turned around and spread his arms to face the starry sky. A pair of quiet green flames kept dancing under the black robe, eerie and eerie. But it gives people an endless mystery. The next day, Wuwei Marquis' mansion. Marquis, everything you have sent is ready. Zhang Han arched his hand and said to Su Wangchuan. Yesterday, I retired from court. Su Wangchuan asked him to prepare some oil lamps. The oil in it must also undergo special treatment as instructed by him. Although Zhang Han was very puzzled about this and didn't understand what he wanted to do, he didn't ask too much. Since Your Majesty has entrusted the power of overseeing the country to Marquis Wuwei, this indicates that Your Majesty trusts him. And all I need is unconditional obedience. Upon hearing this, Su Wangchuan nodded. Now he represents the government and oversees the country. The entire palace can be dispatched at will. But Su Wangchuan chose Zhang Han. It's not because others are not easy to use, but because he only trusts Zhang Han. The 7-star lamp continues life. Don't be careless at all. Even he doesn't know if he will succeed. And among the oil lamps prepared by Zhang Han, he had to personally select 40.9 new ones for external use. Besides that, we also need a life lamp. And this destiny lamp needs to be prepared by Su Wangchuan himself. These are all necessary for using the 7-star lamp life continuation technique. Continuing, Su Wangchuan gave another command to Zhang Han. Let him guard in front of Ying Zheng's dormitory for the next 2 days. Without his instructions, no one shall be allowed to meet His Majesty. From now on, Su Wangchuan wants to completely block the news of Ying Zheng. Prevent unexpected situations from occurring. Meanwhile, once Ying Zheng enters a closed state, he must ensure that no second person besides himself knows the location of Ying Zheng's seclusion. Zhang Han received the order and quickly left the mansion. However, just as Su Wangchuan was preparing to leave, he suddenly felt a sneaky aura, hiding in the dark as if monitoring himself. Su Wangchuan's eyebrows sank. You are really so bold. Dare to come to my own mansion for trouble. A sunken boat. With a soft drink from Su Wangchuan. Shua. A sturdy figure immediately flashed out of the room. Marquis, what are your orders? Looking at the man in front of him in a cloak. This is exactly the reward for his first check that IN. Li Chenzhou, who claims to dominate the world with his fists. For Li Chenzhou, fist is power. To clench one's fist is to hold power. A powerful punch is power. Men cannot be powerless for a day. Wang Qi is domineering, reaching out to this place. There is a mouse hiding around. Go and bring it over. Su Wangchuan spoke calmly. There is no doubt that Li Chenzhou has that strength. Yes. After speaking, Li Chenzhou disappeared. At the same time, outside the Marquis of Wuwei's mansion, in a dark alley, the figure of the moon god appears here. She came here on the order of Emperor Tai. I plan to use a secret technique of the Xianyang family to eavesdrop on the situation in the Marquis of Wuwei's mansion. However, just as she was about to print and display, a figure with tightly clenched fists silently descended behind her. The moon god, who felt the fluctuation of breath coming from behind, immediately turned back. At the moment she saw Li Chenzhou, she couldn't help but feel a shock in her heart. Have you been discovered? Are you going with me yourself, or do you want me to take you? Li Qingzhou stared coldly at the moon god. The tone is devoid of emotion. The moon god's eyebrows furrowed, and she knew she had seen the person in front of her. Under the command of Marquis Wuwei. Just the actual strength is not very clear. After all, it has always been. Neither of them has had much contact. Now, she naturally won't easily go with the other party. Immediately, my hands quickly imprinted and I wanted to leave this place. Upon seeing this, Li Qingzhou stopped talking and directly bullied himself. His task is only one. That's to take the person in front of you back to meet the Marquis. Boom. As Li Qingzhou approaches. Your domineering presence in the world is fully demonstrated. Especially that pair of fists. Like two mountains pressing towards me. The power of the moon god has never been felt by the Eastern Emperor Tai. The moon god dared not speak too big, silently reciting a spell in his mouth, and then he bent his finger and flicked it. A golden dragon suddenly emerged with the flow. Soul-wandering dragon, unleashing the spirit of dragon wandering. It is one of the highest level yin-yang techniques in the yin-yang family. Even disciples of the five spirits Xianyang cannot easily control it. Li Qingzhou saw the golden dragon approaching him. He did not make any defensive posture. Zhao's for him, the best defense is attack. Double fists meet with the flow. Upon seeing this, the moon god couldn't help but sneer, looking for death. Dare to use your physical body to delude and resist your soul, Long Yu. This is the first time she has seen such an arrogant person. But the next moment. But it left her stunned in the same place. I saw Li Qingzhou's fist. An indestructible assault on the yellow dragon. The terrifying aura made the golden dragon emit a painful roar. Li Qingzhou stood in the golden light bath, like a god of war on earth. Boom. Bang. With a violent fluctuation, it exploded. The golden dragon disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the moon god trembled uncontrollably as if being weighed down. Then, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth, and his face turned pale. The soul dragon journey connects her divine consciousness. Once damaged, it will also experience certain backlash. The moon god looked up at Li Qingzhou, his pupils filled with deep fear. She didn't expect that the other party could really resist with just their fists. Seeing oneself defeated by the man in front of me. Moon god quickly spoke up, I'll go with you. Li Qingzhou gave a faint glance, as if saying, shouldn't we just say that earlier? Immediately under the leadership of Li Qingzhou. The moon god followed him to the Wuhou mansion. Marquis, I have brought you. After seeing the moon god, Su Wangchuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He thought it was some little karami. Unexpectedly, it was still a big mouse. Chapter 5. 108th Floor of Qingyi, A Shocking Conspiracy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ho. The moon god sees Ho Yi. After seeing Su Wangchuan, the moon god quickly bowed to him. Now the other party has taken over the administration and supervision of the country. Seeing him is equivalent to seeing His Majesty. Even as a national teacher. All necessary etiquette cannot be omitted. Su Wangchuan waved his hand. Master Gua is not staying in the palace. How come you have time to come to my mansion now? He leaned back on the wicker chair, staring lazily at the moon god. Upon hearing this, the moon god's ears turned slightly red. She wished she could find a crack in the ground and slip in on the spot. At this moment it was like giving her a feeling of being caught on the spot after committing theft. Anyway. At least she is also a Great Qin national teacher. I just happened to pass by. I thought of coming to Lord Ho's place to take a look. After all, the Marquis has just been in charge of the country, so there must be many things that are difficult to get started with. The moon god responded. Thank you, Master Guo. I just don't really need any manpower lately. Besides, Zhang Han and the others are all here. Master Guo, just feel at ease. Su Wangchuan naturally knew that the moon god was lying. After all, just now her sneaky behavior outside didn't seem to be a good intention to help. However, she did not directly expose it. Because it's not good for oneself to expose it. On the contrary, maintain this relationship with the Xianyang family. Maybe it will be useful in the future. The moon god breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing these words. Fortunately, the other party still stepped down for themselves. Since that's the case, then I'll leave first. The moon god once again bowed to Su Wangchuan. Now she just wants to leave here quickly. I don't even want to wait for another second. Then, the moon god hurriedly left. Just one step ahead of the moon god. Li Chenzhou leaned forward and asked in a low voice, Marquis, do you want to? Su Wangchuan shook his head. I have already taught her a lesson today. Besides, her life is still useful. Say it. Su Wangchuan asked Li Chenzhou to prepare the carriage. I have to go to the palace myself. All the necessary items for continuing one's life have been prepared. Just explain some precautions to Your Majesty. This 7-star lamp continues life, can begin. The sleeping palace of King Qing. Your Majesty, the above is what needs to be noted during these 7 days. Tonight at midnight, I will take Your Majesty away from the palace. And at the hour of Mao, it will officially begin. Su Wangchuan looked at Ying Zheng lying on the dragon couch and said. Ying Zheng nodded weakly and weakly. Show that you have no objections. I will obey your arrangements, Su Wangchuan. But at this moment, Li Chenzhou arrived at the palace and said, Marquis, here we are. You stay and keep an eye on Your Majesty. Su Wangchuan left a sentence and walked towards the outside of the sleeping palace. Just arrived outside. I saw an old man with white hair wearing a high hat step forward and kneel on one knee towards him. My subordinate Huxiu, see Marquis. Get up, Su Wangchuan nodded. Huxiu, the chief steward of Qingyi building. Strength is the realm of heaven and humanity. Above Li Chenzhou. The Qingyi Tower is not a single building. It has 108 buildings, each with 108 people, making it an extremely powerful organization. They not only have a large number of people but also a tight organization, so as long as it is something they want to do, there are very few things they cannot do. No one knows when the Qingyi Tower actually appeared. Back then, it was like suddenly appearing overnight and shocking the entire martial arts world. No one knows where the first floor of Qingyi building is. No one has ever seen the 108 portraits on the first floor of Qingyi building with their own eyes. But everyone knows that those who can have portraits there are already capable of rampaging through the rivers and lakes. And the owner of the Qingyi building, Huxiu. It is also the existence of a legendary figure in the martial arts world. His actions throughout his life were eerie and full of mystery. Even in the martial arts world, they belong to renowned figures. Just no one knows. The owner of the Qingyi building, Huxiu, is actually a subordinate of the Marquis of Wuwei in the Great Qin Dynasty. If this news spreads, I'm afraid it can cause a huge sensation in the martial arts world. Is everyone here? Su Wangchuan asked indifferently. We're all here, Marquis. Everyone on the first floor is outside at this moment, waiting for your dispatch, Marquis. Huxiu quickly responded. Okay. Su Wangchuan nodded. During the continuation of the 7-star lamp, he planned to have Huxiu lead the 108 people on the first floor of the Qingyi building to guard Ying Zheng. Only they can make Su Wangchuan feel at ease. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent so much effort. Summon Huxiu from 1,000 miles away. Continuing. Su Wangchuan personally went to settle the people in Qingyi Tower. And let Huoxiu wait for orders at any time. Tonight is destined to be a sleepless night. Zhao Mansion. Zhao Gao looked at the secret letter in his hand and couldn't help but furrow his brow. Hu Hai saw the situation and quickly asked, "Teacher, what's wrong?" Qiao Shimao sent someone to deliver it. Today, Su Wangchuan suddenly brought 100 people to the palace. Upon hearing these words, Hu Hai's face immediately turned ugly. Qiao Shimao, one of the 9 ministers of the Great Qin, was the Langzhongling. It is also their biggest eyeliner in the palace today. Monitor Your Majesty's every move. After all, Lang Zhongling is an official in charge of palace guards. Teacher, what do you think Su Wangchuan is going to do? Hu Hai's words have just finished. Then, he thought of a terrifying point. Those people are not his privately raised soldiers, are they? Upon hearing this, Zhao Gao fell into silence. He is guessing. If it is truly Su Wangchuan's privately raised soldiers and horses. Your Majesty has appointed him to oversee the country. There must be some undisclosed secret among them. Even extremely likely. Your Majesty was forced. Think of it here. Zhao Gao suddenly realized. No wonder Your Majesty would rather keep many princes indifferent than let a Marquis of Wuwei, who holds 300,000 military power, oversee the country. This was not supposed to happen. Zhaoshuyuan.com various signs indicate that. Your Majesty must have been coerced by Marquis Wuwei, Su Wangchuan. Your Highness, Your Majesty is highly likely to have been controlled by Su Wangchuan now. Zhao Gao expressed his own thoughts. Shua. Hu Hai immediately widened his eyes and stood still. The pupils were filled with a look of fear. He is not foolish. If we really follow what the teacher said. At this moment, inside the palace. A shocking rebellion is happening. And Marquis Wuwei, Su Wangchuan, is the culprit. Intentional misconduct, plotting rebellion. This is a serious crime to be beheaded by the 3 barbarians. During the Qin Dynasty, only the 3 tribes were executed, teacher. How can we save our father? Hu Hai asked anxiously. Your Highness, don't worry. If that's the case, this matter must not be done recklessly. I'll send someone to contact Zhuqing now. Listen to their opinions. Zhao Gao said calmly. Okay. Hu Hai nodded heavily. Continuing. Several carriages departed from Zhao Mansion in unison. But the direction of travel is completely different. Heading towards the respective mansions of the 9 ministers. As of today. No one suspects that Su Wangchuan will rebel. But now, Zhao Gao feels more and more suspicious about the situation. He only felt that a huge conspiracy was slowly looming over the palace. And as long as you break the game yourself. He believed that the throne of the crown prince would fall on Hu Hai's head as if it were benevolent. Chapter 6. Choose the land of continuation, the Imperial Mausoleum of Mountly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zisher. The king of Qin sleeps outside the palace. Countless figures gather here, side by side in 2 rows, leaving a long path. Huoxiu and Li Chenzhou stood at the front, waiting quietly. In no time. I saw Su Wangchuan use his internal power to lift Ying Zheng out of the palace with one hand. He is now going to transfer Ying Zheng to the place he has prepared for his continuation. It is impossible to stay in this palace. And throughout Xianyang, Su Wangchuan couldn't find a suitable place. After much thought and contemplation. In the end, Su Wangchuan decided. Identifying Zheng's place of continuation in the imperial tomb of Mountly in the Qinling Mountains. Because there, far away from the world. Even if some malicious people go there. I won't easily find the main chamber of the imperial tomb. The safety factor can be said to have been maximized. Naturally, there is no need to worry about someone causing trouble. But at this moment, A white figure holding a long sword suddenly appeared next to a pillar not far away. His appearance let Li Qinzhou's eyebrows sink slightly. Huixiu showed a strange expression. At this moment, the assassins of Qingyi building were even more vigilant. Only Su Wangchuan remained unusually calm. The white figure ignored everyone. Finally, he fixed his gaze on Su Wangchuan. "When will your Majesty return?" "The fastest, 7 days." Su Wangchuan responded. The figure in white nodded at the words. He is the chief swordsmanship instructor of Ying Zheng. At the same time, he is also the first swordsman of the Great Qin. Xianyang, the descendant of the Ghost Valley sect's vertical swordsmanship. If it were someone else, Xianyang would never allow Ying Zheng to be taken away from the palace. When Qin conquered the 6 states, the two even teamed up. It can be said that there was an indelible friendship. Therefore, he understood Su Wangchuan. If he really wants to rebel or harm your Majesty, there's no need for such trouble at all. Since that's the case, your Majesty will hand it over to Marquis Wuwei. Xianyang said calmly. Next up, Su Wangchuan settled Ying Zheng on the carriage. I accompanied you step by step throughout the entire journey. Get ready to depart. Su Wangchuan let out a soft drink. Huixiu's figure flashed and he came to the front of the carriage, acting as a groom. And Li Qinzhou rode a horse and followed beside the carriage, always ensuring the safety of the carriage. Before leaving, Su Wangchuan glanced meaningfully at Xianyang through the carriage window. And Xianyang seemed to feel his gaze. I deliberately lowered my head slightly. Drive. With a loud shout from Huixiu, the carriage immediately rushed towards the outside of the palace, until the carriage was completely invisible. Xianyang then put down his hand and took out a black hat from behind, clasping it on his head, finally disappearing into the darkness. Zhao Mansion. Several figures are gathering here. But everyone's face was unusually ugly. At first, it was called up in the middle of the night. Everyone still feels a bit unhappy in their hearts. However, when Zhao Gao told them his suspicions in his heart, the drowsiness all over my body instantly disappeared. Mr. Zhao, do you really have conclusive evidence? Otherwise, you can't say this nonsense. If your Majesty finds out, we might end up losing our heads. They are all high-ranking and influential 9 ministers. Even calling it the pillar of the country is not an exaggeration. Because throughout the entire palace, the emperor doesn't need to say much. Except for the prime minister, grand commandant, and imperial censor. The 9 of them have the greatest power. The 9 ministers of the Qin dynasty were Fengchang, Langshongling, Weiwei, Zhongzheng, Taipu, Tingwei, Jianke, Jisu Neishi, and Xiaofu. 9 people each perform their respective duties. They hold different powers separately. Fengchang, in charge of ancestral temple etiquette, Lanzhongling, in charge of the palace and the gateway, Weiwei, in charge of the palace guards and station troops, Taipu, in charge of Yuma, Tingwei, in charge of criminal investigation, Jianke, in charge of all the righteous barbarians, Zhongzheng, in charge of relatives, managing the internal history of grain production and handling grain goods, Xiaofu, in charge of the taxes on mountains, seas, ponds, and lakes, to provide for co-cultivation. And tonight, except for General Meng Tian, who was a guard, he did not arrive. The other 7 people all gathered in this Zhao mansion. And Zhao Gao was not long ago. Has been promoted by Ying Zheng from the Zhongche prefecture to become a servant. Both are among the 9 ministers. Upon hearing this, Zhao Gao gave a cold glance. He naturally wouldn't say to everyone that this was just a guess in his heart. Moreover, Zhao Gao has never made a wrong judgment before. I believe this time is no exception. Your Majesty must have been controlled by Su Wangchuan. That's why we did such an outrageous thing to make Marquis Wuwei supervise the country. Think about it, everyone. Has it ever happened since ancient times that a marquis was appointed to oversee the country? Throughout history, Your Majesty has always valued rules the most. We are the courtiers around Your Majesty, and we are familiar with Your Majesty. Do you think Your Majesty would do such a ridiculous act? Zhao Gao's words were like pouring cold water, instantly awakening everyone present. Mr. Zhao is right. Many princes are still alive, and since ancient times, those who are not royal relatives cannot hold power. Your Majesty knows this better than us. Your Majesty must have been threatened and forced by Marquis Wuwei to hand over the power of the state to him. The doctor ordered Chao Shimao to quickly agree on the side. Among the 7 people, only he truly counts as Zhao Gao's person. Because he can sit in the position of Langshongling. It's entirely thanks to Zhao Gao's blessing. As for others, it's just about being profitable. I chose to stand on the same front as Zhao Gao. After all, the future crown prince of the Great Qin Dynasty is destined to be born from the 2 of the eldest son Fusu and the 18th prince Huhai. But now, Changgongzi Fusu has been exiled to Shangjuan by Ying Zheng, which is only 108,000 miles away from the capital. There is a high probability that the position of crown prince will fall on Huhai. So, what they are interested in is entirely this layer of interest. So, Mr. Zhao, what do you plan for us to do? Zhongzheng and Bao Yu quickly asked. He doesn't care if others believe it or not. Anyway, he believed it. Your Majesty is announcing the supervision of Marquis Wuwei. I didn't even say a word to these royal relatives. Zhaoshuyuan.com. There is clearly some unknown secret hidden in this. Zhao Gao fell into silence. I really can't think of any good way to deal with it for a while. Mr. Zhao, a person's power is limited. How about this? Tomorrow morning, all of us will join forces to go to the palace to meet Your Majesty. With so many of us, I believe that Marquis Wuwei dare not do anything to us. Feng Chongliu suddenly spoke up. Upon hearing this, everyone nodded in agreement, indicating that this method was feasible. Since that's the case, as Mr. Li said, tomorrow morning, we will enter the palace together and meet Your Majesty. Zhao Gao also agreed. He believed that in the case of the 9 ministers uniting with the 100 officials, even though Su Wangchuan has the power to supervise the country, he dare not do anything to them. Moreover, the 18th prince is also among them. Next up. After everyone agreed on the time and place. Only then did they all leave the Zhao mansion. At the same time. Qinling Mountains, Lishan Mountains. The main interior of the Imperial tomb. 49 star lights were slowly burning. Arrange them in the direction of the Big Dipper at the same time. Looking inside along the star lamp. I saw Ying Zheng sitting in the center with his eyes closed. In front of it, there is a unique star lamp placed. And this is the lifeblood of Ying Zheng. As long as it is guaranteed that the life light will not go out within 7 days. It means that the 7-star lamp has successfully renewed its life. It can increase one's lifespan. That's 12 years. Chapter 7. Emperor Shi dies and divides the land. The world is shocked. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After finishing everything, Su Wangchuan withdrew from the main chamber of the imperial tomb. And the main outdoor. Su Wangchuan arranged for Li Qingzhou to stand firm and steadfast. As for Huaxiu and the 108 assassins on the first floor of Qingyi building, it is mainly scattered around the imperial tomb. At the same time, Su Wangchuan issued a death order. If someone is found approaching, no matter who it is, no matter what the purpose is, kill it directly without mercy. As for myself, I plan to return to Xianyang. After all, this period of time. But it requires him to supervise the country. Besides, except for gain. No one knew that Ying Zheng had left the palace. And the longer I leave, the greater the risk of exposure. So, Su Wangchuan, the imperial tomb of Mountly, does not intend to stay for a long time. Just as Su Wangchuan was preparing to depart and return to Xianyang, suddenly, a violent roar echoed from above in the distance. Boom. Continuing. Everyone in the entire Qin territory saw the terrifying scene on the sky. A huge and dazzling fireball, emitting flames all over its body, is cutting through the sky at an extremely fast speed. The sky, which originally belonged only to the night, became bright under the illumination of this fireball. Countless people looked up into the air, their pupils filled with a look of terror. No one has ever seen this scene. In the end, the fireball fell in the direction of Dongjun like destroying heaven and earth. Boom. On the ground of Dongjun, a huge deep pit was instantly smashed out. The surrounding land is covered with cracks, like spider silk, spreading in all directions. After the meteorite fell, countless people thought it would end like this. But the next moment, a dazzling golden light suddenly rose over Dongjun. Then, a few large characters slowly emerged in the air. Emperor Shi died and was divided on the ground. The font emits a golden light, shining brightly. Countless people around the world are looking at these few fonts in the sky, some are happy while others are sad. After seeing these words, Su Wangchuan couldn't help but frown. In his impression, shouldn't these words appear on meteorites? Why is it now appearing as golden light? And it is also publicly available worldwide. This is obviously ulterior motives. Now that this news is out, it is likely to cause a considerable sensation in the world, even bringing a huge disaster to the empire. Those remnants of the Six Kingdoms hiding in the dark will definitely not miss this opportunity. After a moment, the golden font disappears. But it has been recognized by countless people. Su Wangchuan did not hesitate. Quickly got on the carriage and returned to Xianyang. As for here, Hu Xiu and Li Chenzhou are present. He is very reassured. And tonight, it will surely drive countless people crazy. Mahist Institution City. All the leaders of the Mahist school saw the 7 big characters in the sky. Ha ha ha. Even heaven can't stand what that tyrant has done. What a delightful experience. The big hammer burst out laughing, his eyes filled with uncontrollable excitement. He never dreamed of killing Ying Zheng more than once. Nowadays, even fate has decided to kill Ying Zheng, which naturally won his heart. I just don't know if someone's up to it. At this moment, Gao Jian, who had always been calm and composed, left his mouth. He always feels that these words in the air are a bit strange. Will the will of heaven really manifest? Did you all see the fireball just now? Who can create that kind of noise? In my opinion, it is fate's will that the tyrant will die and that the state of Qin will perish. The big hammer waved its hands, firmly believing in its own views. I hope so, Gao Jianli nodded. Since they can see these big characters, I believe people from other forces in the world can also see them. So during this period, there will definitely be major events happening. So, they just need to wait quietly. Let's take a look at the external reactions first. Dongjun. Xiang's manor. Since Chu was conquered by Qin, Fan Xing 70 rebelled against Qin. He hid here with all the remaining sins of the Chu state. At this moment, everyone gathered together to discuss the vision that appeared in the air tonight. Tonight can be said to be a very important moment for all of them. The tyrant is dying, and we can finally avenge our dead brothers and sisters. Xiang Liang's eyes were red. On this day, he had been waiting for too long. Uncle Xiang. Looking at Xiang Liang, Xiang Xiaoyu beside him couldn't help but clench his fist. If it weren't for escorting oneself back then, There won't be so many people dying tragically under the sword of the black-armored Qin army. He has always had a hint of guilt in his heart. The great cause of restoring the country became the only thing that Xiang Xiaoyu had in mind. Senior Fan, what do you think? Xiang Liang turned around and looked at an old man with hair all over his head. Fan Zheng saw the situation and reached out to stroke his beard. The current situation in the world is unstable. I don't have to wait too quickly. I'm worried, this is a trap set by the king of Qin. Fan Zheng expressed his thoughts in his heart. After all, everyone knows that Ying Zheng's physical condition is not as good as before. Perhaps this is the trap he set before his death, just to catch all the remaining evils of the six kingdoms hiding in the dark. Upon hearing this, Xiang Liang nodded. Senior Fan's words are reasonable. After all, the cunning of the Qin king is evident to all of them. Let's take a look first. At the same time, those four individuals' search needs to accelerate the process. Fan Zheng exclaimed. Xianyang family. The elders of various departments gathered together. There was no sign of Emperor Taichi this time. Obviously still in seclusion. It's really interesting to die and divide. The star's soul revealed a strange smile. Is it true that the deadline for King Qin is approaching? Su Fu couldn't help but speak. As far as I know, the reason why King Qin appointed Marquis Wuwei to oversee the country this time is because of some health issues, said the Grand Minister. But then on. Star Soul suddenly thought of something. He looked up at the moon god. Didn't Your Excellency the Eastern Emperor send you to inquire about the situation? What have you found out about everyone? Upon hearing this, the moon god fell silent when searching for the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. The situation is still, she almost confessed to the Marquis of Wuwei's mansion. When everyone saw this, they naturally understood. But the next moment, the moon god suddenly spoke up, Marquis Wuwei is far more terrifying than we imagine. I am not even a match for the person following him. As soon as this sentence is spoken, everyone's faces changed to some extent. But this intelligence is not what they really want to hear. It's been so many years. How many secrets are still hidden in him? Su Fu couldn't help but sigh. After continuing to discuss for a while, everyone dispersed. As for the anomaly that appeared in the air tonight, they can only make a decision after His Excellency the Eastern Emperor leaves the border. Zhao Mansion. When Zhao Gao saw the anomaly in the sky tonight, I have a stronger belief in myself. Your Majesty must have been coerced by Marquis Wuwei. Even Your Majesty may have been killed. Thinking of this, Zhao Gao couldn't help but be inspired. If Your Majesty is truly killed, this is a devastating blow for the empire. How can there be a complete egg under the pouring of the nest? They will inevitably be affected by a significant impact. Even a bad person would lose their life because of it. So, Zhao Gao must come up with an excellent solution before dawn. Leave him time not much. Chapter 8. Nine Qing breaks into the palace and slams Zhao Gao. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The next day. Outside the palace gate. A dozen or so figures meet at a distance here. Except for the 9 ministers, most of the others are high-ranking officials in the court. Although their status may not be comparable to that of the 9 ministers, they can at least speak up. Has Mr. Zhao not come yet? Zhongzheng and Bao Yu kept looking around. Everyone has arrived, but Zhao Gao's figure has been missing for a long time. Wait a little longer, Chao Shimao said. He believes that Zhao Gao will definitely not water them. You should all know about last night's incident, right? At this moment, Feng Chongliu suddenly spoke up. Everyone's faces couldn't help but change upon hearing these words. Shoo! Mr. Li, this is beyond words. Bao Yu quickly made a quiet gesture, warning him not to speak recklessly. After all, it's inside this palace. Some words cannot be said casually. Besides, it's still this kind of thing. If it really doesn't work out, losing your head would be a small matter. Mr. Zhao is here. With a loud shout from Qiao Shimao. Everyone quickly took the opportunity to look around. As expected. The figures of Zhao Gao and Hu Hai appeared from afar. Wait until it's close. Everyone arched their hands and gestured, Mr. Zhao. Zhao Gao gave a faint glance and his gaze swept over the crowd. Is everyone here? Lord Zhao, everyone has arrived. Li Yu quickly responded. Zhao Gao nodded. Since that's the case, why don't you all come with me to the palace to meet your majesty? Okay. Everyone responded in unison. Next up. Everyone followed Zhao Gao into the palace. In front of the Qin king's palace. A figure stopped Zhao Gao and others. It is the Shadow Secret Guard Commander Han. Ladies and gentlemen, please stop. The Marquis has an order. Without his edict, no one is allowed to intrude into the Qin palace without permission. Upon hearing this, Zhao Gao raised his eyebrows slightly. Could General Zhang please go in and announce that we need to see your majesty? Upon hearing these words, Zhang Han remained unwavering. He looked at the crowd and said, Marquis has an order. Your majesty's health is in trouble. No one is allowed to see your majesty during this period. Upon hearing these words, Zhao Gaodun couldn't help but feel overwhelmed. Does Su Wangchuan really consider himself the king of Qing? No one is allowed to meet your majesty. This is to firmly control your majesty. Forcefully suppressing his inner anger, Zhao Gao asked coldly, where is the Marquis now? However, just as Zhang Hangang was about to speak, a voice suddenly came from behind the crowd. Who is looking for me? The words have just finished. Su Wangchuan walked out from behind the crowd. Marquis. Zhang Han gestured to him. Su Wangchuan nodded. He had just returned from handling government affairs at the Qilin Palace when he encountered this scene. Ho Yi. After seeing Su Wangchuan, the 9 ministers still bowed. What's going on? Want to disobey instructions? Su Wangchuan's gaze swept over the crowd one by one, and his tone was full of questioning. Suddenly, a strong sense of oppression swept over. I dare not. Everyone quickly responded in unison. Then, everyone turned their gaze towards Zhao Gao again. Zhao Gao's face instantly darkened upon seeing this. He knew that none of these people could stand up at this moment. He gritted his teeth and immediately spoke, Marquis, the 19th prince, and we are concerned about your majesty's physical condition. We are here today to visit you. Oh. Upon hearing this, Su Wangchuan narrowed his eyes and showed a hint of interest. He naturally doesn't believe Zhao Gao's words. As the saying goes, it's good. The weasel pays New Year's greetings to the chicken. This Zhao Gao is obviously not just here to visit His Majesty. Your Majesty is in poor health. Everyone, please go back. Once your Majesty recovers, I will inform your Majesty. Su Wangchuan waved his hand. He still has something to attend to today. I don't want to waste time on them. However, upon hearing these words, Zhao Gao became unhappy. Do you want to send them back in just a few words? You, Su Wangchuan, are just acting as a regent and not a true emperor. At this moment, Qiao Shimao beside him quickly spoke up and said, Marquis, as the son of His Majesty, Your Highness the Crown Prince has come to visit us with filial piety. The Marquis placed it outside the door, which obviously goes against human nature. The others nodded in agreement when they saw the situation. However, Su Wangchuan sneered in his heart. The Dongjun meteorite incident just happened yesterday. How many people went to the palace today and claimed to visit His Majesty? Even a fool can understand the intention behind this. He looked at the dozen or so people in front of him. I just didn't expect that 8 of the 9 ministers of the Great Qin were among them. It has to be said that Zhao Gao still has some skills. Surprisingly able to win over so many important officials in the court. If it weren't for Ying Zheng publicly announcing that he would be in charge of the country. I'm afraid these people in front of me are already discussing how to seek power and usurp the throne. Seeing Su Wangchuan, he remained unmoved. Zhao Gao couldn't help but say again, Marquis, this is probably not in line with common sense, is it? When did it take for you to speak in a male or female tone? Su Wangchuan immediately responded with a sentence. This is just a statement. The expressions of the crowd couldn't help but change slightly. And Zhao Gao's face instantly darkened. In front of everyone, he cursed himself as being neither male nor female. This is like stepping on his face and rubbing it against the ground. No face to speak of. You. Just as Zhao Gao was about to speak. Pop. A slap hit his face directly. And Zhao Gao's body was even expelled. Lying on the ground like a dead dog. This sudden scene. Let everyone freeze in place. They haven't even realized what happened yet. I said so. There's no room for you to speak here. Su Wangchuan ignored Zhao Gao. He doesn't mind, he saw Zhao Gao here today. Just in time to prevent future troubles. Save yourself and take action in the future. The rest of the crowd dared not make a sound at this moment. Afraid of encountering equal treatment from Zhao Gao. They didn't expect Su Wangchuan to be so decisive. If you say you'll do it, do it. Not giving them any reaction time. Zhao Gao got up from the ground. He was clearly a bit dizzy from the slap. I can't even distinguish between the southeast, northwest, and north. The face on the right is even more red and swollen like a pig's head. Even a few teeth scattered on the ground. Zhao Gao looked back at Su Wangchuan. For a moment, a hint of fear arose in my heart. Anyway. At least I am also a great master and strong person. However, this slap from Marquis Wuwei. Zhaoshuyuan.com almost killed him directly. If there are any more people who dare to violate instructions in the future, I won't be as lenient as I am today. Su Wangchuan warned everyone. The tone was filled with an unquestionable majestic aura. In the end, everyone left one after another. However, Su Wangchuan has already recorded the names of the people who came here today. The 9 ministers of the Great Qin are all pillars of the country. Now that Ying Zheng is still here, he is thinking of finding a new home. It can be said that once these people act recklessly, the Qin would instantly become chaotic. In theory, it is impossible for Zhuqing to be completely wooed by a crown prince. Because above the 9 ministers, there is also a prime minister restraining them. And the imperial censor is not a vegetarian either. After all, the main responsibility of an imperial censor is to supervise the officials. Just looking at the current situation, I'm afraid that the imperial censor will also be wooed by Zhao Gao Huhai. If that's really the case. So the line released by Zhao Gao Huhai is really deep enough. Prime Minister Li Si has always kept his eyes open and his attitude can be described as extremely subtle. Due to Ying Zheng's physical condition, he often falls short of his ability. This forces him to sometimes delegate power. Think of it here. Su Wangchuan's eyes couldn't help but show a hint of killing intent. Now that Your Majesty has chosen himself, that means believing in him. Next, Su Wangchuan plans to follow his own train of thought. Although unplugging the 9 ministers would cause chaos in the court, he is not afraid of these. If it really comes to that time, the Qin can be suppressed by Su Wangchuan alone. Chapter 9. Zhao Gao's Plan, The Changing Xianyang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Xianghua Prefecture. Li Si looked at the letter in his hand, his brow furrowing uncontrollably. The commander of Zhongche Prefecture, together with the 9 ministers, attempted to break into the palace to meet His Majesty, but was stopped by Marquis Wuwei. And publicly slapped Zhao Gao. Look at the content of the letter. Liston recalled the letter sent to him by Zhao Gao last night. The letter indicates that we would like to invite him to go together today. How could he, who is cunning and calculating, not know the meaning behind it? Li Si naturally refused Zhao Gao. As soon as dawn broke, the news spread. Li Si shook his head and tore up the letter. He did not initially feel any abnormality in His Majesty's appointment of Marquis Wuwei to oversee the country. But after today's commotion, why doesn't Marquis Wuwei allow Zhao Gao and others to meet His Majesty? What is hidden in this? Li Si was at a loss for understanding. Plus the aerial anomaly from last night. Various signs indicate that things are not as simple as they seem on the surface. Think of it here. Lise can't sit still. I immediately decided to go to the palace. He wants to go and see it himself. What exactly is going on? Zhao Mansion. After Zhao Gao returned from the palace. My mood can be described as extremely bad. Continuously venting his anger in his mansion. The attendants and maidservants around dared not step forward to dissuade them when they saw the situation. Su Wangchuan. Su Wangchuan. I want you to die. Feeling the pain coming from the right face. Zhao Gao slapped him. A marble table in front of him shattered with a loud bang. It's almost time to vent. Hu Hai then approached and spoke softly, Teacher, today is a shame. We can't just let it go. We must find it back in the future. However, the words had just finished. Zhao Gao immediately rejected Hu Hai and said, No. There's no need for it in the future. I'm going to make Su Wangchuan pay for his blood debt. Say it. Zhao Gao immediately clapped his hands. Shua. Shua shua. In vain. 6 figures descended silently like ghosts behind the 2 of them. Hu Hai quickly turned his head and looked surprised. 6 swordsmen. Are you really going to take action now, teacher? He is still a bit worried. After all, this only happened today. If anything really happens to Marquis Wuwei, believe that as long as you are not a fool, it can be guessed that they must have retaliated. Upon hearing these words, Zhao Gao's eyes suddenly flashed with a hint of sinister intent. Before going to the palace today. Actually, he was still a bit uneasy in his heart. Has anything happened to Your Majesty? But after Su Wangchuan's intervention, Zhao Gao's heart instantly became determined. Your Majesty, something must have happened. Otherwise, why wouldn't Su Wangchuan let them meet His Majesty? For Zhao Gao, this is a big gamble. Betting right, he turned over and became the Prime Minister of Great Qin in one fell swoop. And Hu Hai naturally added a dragon robe to his body, becoming a presence above millions of people. But once the bet is wrong, everything I have will go to waste. Even one's own life could be at risk. But Zhao Gao has full confidence. I can win this gambling game on my own. Before Ying Zheng delegated power, he knew that Ying Zheng's body could not sustain for long. Perhaps Your Majesty has already set sail to the west. Now it's just that Marquis Wuwei trying to stabilize the situation. I dare not announce it to the public. I don't have enough strength alone. Zhao Gao suddenly thought of something. He turned to a servant and ordered, Go, let Chao Shimao come and see me. In no time. Chao Shimao then rode a carriage to Zhao Mansion. After seeing Zhao Gao, he immediately asked, Sir, are you looking for me? Zhao Gao saw the situation without leaving a trace and directly asked, How many people and horses do you have in control of the entire Xianyang city? Within the territory of Duchin, soldiers can be roughly divided into 3 types. Capital soldiers, county soldiers, and border guards. Each performs their own duties. Among them, the capital soldiers are guarding the imperial capital of Xianyang to ensure its safety. County soldiers are considered responsible for the defense of each county. Border guards, as their name suggests, defend the border and guard against other countries. The capital army is mainly composed of Langguan, guards, and garrison soldiers guarding the capital. The Langguan is under the command of the Langzhong commander. The guards are led by guards and are responsible for guarding both inside and outside the palace. The garrison guarding the capital can also be referred to as the Imperial Guard. The tiger talisman bestowed by Ying Zheng to Su Wangchuan. He is the commander of the Imperial Guard. The total number of people and horses added up is about 30,000. Chao Shimao responded. Zhao Gao nodded. 30,000 is not a small amount, but it's not much either. What do adults want to do? Chao Shimao sensed a hint of danger and immediately asked. Would you be willing to take a gamble with me? I promise you, once successful. In the future, you will be the grand historian of the Great Qin. Zhao Gao stared fixedly at Chao Shimao, his pupils filled with madness. Although the other party was personally promoted, rebellions may not necessarily be at the mercy of oneself. Upon hearing these words, Chao Shimao's face instantly changed. He was not foolish, so he immediately recognized the meaning in Zhao Gao's words. But the thought of becoming an imperial censor. Chao Shimao's heart was pounding wildly. How much certainty do adults have? 90%. Zhao Gao answered directly. Leading the net for so many years. He believes in his intuition and judgment. Upon hearing this, Chao Shimao fell into contemplation. Zhao Gao saw the situation and did not urge. After a moment, Chao Shimao gritted his teeth. Since that's the case, I'll accompany you to gamble on this. Okay. Zhao Gao also had a cold expression, slightly excited. Because with the addition of Chao Shimao, their success rate will greatly increase. Teacher, what do you plan to do? Hu Hai spoke up and asked. Then, Zhao Gao pulled the two into the room. And let the 6 swordsmen guard outside the door. We discussed with the two of them. At the same time. Imperial Palace, Qilin Palace. Li Si, see Marquis Wuwei. Li Si arched his hand and bowed, his voice echoing in the main hall. Su Wangchuan, who was preparing the list of 9 ministers, looked up. Zhaoshuyuan.com. After seeing Li Si, he couldn't help but say, "What's up?" I hereby report to Marquis Wuwei that the remaining sins of the Mahist school have not respected the imperial edict and have been confined to the mechanism city. Now, our soldiers of the Great Qin Dynasty have been unable to attack the mechanism city for a long time, losing over 1,000 soldiers every day. I am here to request Marquis Wuwei to submit an order. How will we handle this matter? Upon hearing these words, Su Wangchuan's eyebrows slightly furrowed. Mahist school, mechanism city. When I slaughtered 6 countries myself. He has a deep impression of this genre. A series of mobile phone shutdown techniques have emerged, causing him to lose many soldiers. It's just that this Mahist school has been disappearing for so long. I didn't expect to jump out and confront his empire again now. I really didn't take the Qin seriously. Send me an order to open the MO school's mechanism city and surrender, which will save you from death. If not, I will personally visit the mechanism city, leaving no one behind. Upon hearing these words, Lise couldn't help but be moved. Even gave him a vague illusion. 10 years ago, the god of slaughter, known as Shura, who slaughtered the 5 kingdoms, returned. Here. Li Si responded respectfully. Is there anything else? Su Wangchuan asked again. No, no more. Lise quickly shook his head. He originally intended to borrow the Mahist mechanism city to inquire about His Majesty's affairs. But he was intimidated by the terrifying aura released by Su Wangchuan. Even though the two were 10 meters apart, Li still felt a hint of fear in his heart. In the end, Li Si quickly withdrew from the Qilin palace. Looking at Li Si's back, Su Wangchuan slowly raised the corner of his mouth. At the same time, the list of 9 ministers in hand has also been sorted out. Next. It's naturally time for liquidation. Chapter 10. Warning to the world, the Empress Wuwei has returned. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mahist School. Organ City. This Qin army is really endless. It's been so long, still so persistent. Thief Shi stood on the outer city wall, holding an unknown grass in his mouth, looking lazily at the Qin army camp stationed in the forest in the distance below. Since King Ying Zheng of Qin ordered Li Si to annihilate the Mo family and destroy his organization city. Almost every 3 days, a wave of Qin army comes to attack the city. However, almost every time the Qin army suffered heavy casualties. Even so, the Qin army still refused to withdraw. What about him? They will waste Shirduo without any worries. As long as we guard the mechanism city well, the Qin army will always be able to watch from outside. The big hammer moved its muscles and bones, saying. But at this moment, a disciple of the Mahist school suddenly rushed to the two of them. 2 leaders. The giant summoned both of you to go to the inner city immediately. Upon hearing these words, the 2 thieves couldn't help but be taken aback. Why did the giant summon us? This. I don't know. The Mahist disciple shook his head. The giant suddenly summoned us, there must be something wrong. Let's go take a look. The thief patted the shoulder of the big hammer. The 2 of them rushed towards the inner city together. Inner city. Lobby. Is everyone here? What happened? Almost all the leaders of the Mahist school gathered here. At the same time, I felt a sense of solemnity filling the air. As soon as the thief met, he couldn't help but ask. Gao Jianli and others saw the 2 thieves arrive together. I couldn't help but turn my gaze towards the giant of the Mahist school on the side. At this moment, the giant of the Mahist school stood up and spoke in a deep voice. I just received an intelligence letter from the Empire. It's about Marquis Wuwei. Marquis Wuwei. He doesn't properly monitor his country. What's going on? Are you going to do something to us again? Thief Shi frowned, clearly guessing something in his heart. The Empire issued us an ultimatum. We are required to open the city and surrender. Otherwise, this Marquis of Wuwei will come in person and say he will leave us alone. At this moment, the class master standing aside stroked his beard and said. What's going on? Are you afraid now? The big hammer suddenly broke the heavy atmosphere in the air. A pair of tiger eyes scanned the crowd. Immediately he touched the iron hammer on his back. Humph. I thought something was going on. He's welcome to come. Let him taste the power of my grandfather's hammer when the time comes. Upon hearing this, the crowd did not refute. However, the thief's paw sensed a hint of something amiss. He looked at the giant and asked suspiciously, is there anything extraordinary about this Marquis of Wuwei? Upon seeing this, the giant spoke slowly and said, you haven't had any contact with him on the battlefield. The first time I saw him was 13 years ago. At that time, I was still in the state of Qin as a hostage, and he had not yet become the Marquis of Wuwei. 3 years later, my pledge ended and I returned to the state of Yen. In the same year, the state of Qin launched its first attack on our country of Yen. Prior to this, Qin had already conquered both Han and Zhao. They are all driven by the power of destruction and decay. In that battle, our country of Yen suffered a great defeat. My father and I were forced to abandon Jicheng and flee Liaodong. The key reason for the great defeat in that battle was on this Marquis of Wuwei. Speaking of which, the giant of the Mahist school trembled, clearly with some lingering palpitations. He entered the city alone, and with one sword per person, he killed nearly 30,000 soldiers of Yen state. Shua. After he said this last sentence, everyone present suddenly froze. His face and pupils were filled with shock. Kill 30,000 people alone. Is this person really human? This can no longer be described as divine courage. But it's against the sky. The thief and the big hammer finally understood. Why did the giant summon all of them? Can't these mechanisms in the city also prevent him? The snow girl couldn't help but ask. If this person is really so scary, then they probably only have a chance to escape. Juzi, Xiaoxue is right. We also have various mechanism beasts created by Master Ban. Even if he is strong, it's probably difficult to resist. Gao Jianli said calmly. Giant, the mechanism city is our last pure land. Even if I die, I will swear to protect here to the death. The big hammer spoke loudly, his tone full of determination. Yeah, giant. Marquis Wuwei is also a human being. As long as he is human, he must have weaknesses. Besides, 10 years have passed. Even the strongest person will grow old. He must be no longer what he used to be. Thief Shi waved his hands without any fear. The giant looked at everyone. Everyone. After a moment, he showed a hint of self-deprecating smile. I didn't expect this big war to have started yet. I actually backed down first. Everyone said it well. Death before birth. I developed a sense of fear. The giant lifted his head and scanned the crowd with his gaze. Since that's the case, the mechanism city will be temporarily handed over to you. Is the giant leaving the mechanism city? Gao Jianli couldn't help but ask. The giant looked outside and said, some old friends should go see each other now. I believe they will extend a helping hand to us. Finally, the Mahist giant quietly left the mechanism city. And within the government city, start preparing in an orderly manner. Welcome the upcoming war. Xianyang. Imperial Palace. Marquis Wuwei has defected. Listen to Zhang Han's report. Su Wangchuan just nodded calmly. There was no hint of surprise on his face. The next moment, Zhang Han knelt down on one knee and sought advice from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, saying, Marquis, Zhang Han is willing to personally lead the Shadow Guard to capture the rebellious Qingyi. However, Su Wangchuan waved his hand. You can't keep someone who is determined to leave. Upon hearing these words, Zhang Han's heart was shocked. Marquis, do you know that Qingyi will betray the empire? Su Wangchuan did not answer him. He stood up. Hand over a list of names to Zhang Han. Zhang Han took it and glanced at it, revealing confusion. Marquis, what is this? What is the character of these people on the list, as seen by General Zhang Han? They are all loyal and kind-hearted people with lofty ideals. Okay. General Zhang Han's words are enough. Su Wangchuan nodded with a satisfied expression. Zhang Han still couldn't understand. But the next moment, I saw Su Wangchuan directly give the order. General Zhang Han, immediately summon the Shadow Guard and follow me on a journey. Here. Although Zhang Han had doubts in his heart, he dared not ask more questions. Continuing. He led many Shadow Guards to leave the palace with Su Wangchuan. Regarding Su Wangchuan's sudden trip, among the 9 ministers, no one knew. And they never expected it. Su Wangchuan will be in broad daylight. Start the liquidation of the 9 ministers and the entire empire. As for why Su Wangchuan personally took action, the fundamental reason is to make these people on the list die more clearly. At the same time, it is also to warn the world. The once arrogant Emperor Wuwei Marquis. Now back.